When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube. So, we're back on the Grease Goblins YouTube channel, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about what if Oberyn Martell actually survives and actually beats the Mountain within Tyrion's trial by combat. But before we get into that video, if you would like to see more content like this, consider subscribing, liking, and commenting. Helps channel out, reach more people and stuff that might like this content like you. And let's get into it. So, Oberyn Martell. He, in the main story, almost wins, but he gets a little over cocky, and he starts trying to get the Mountain basically to confess to all of his crimes, and in the process gets way too close to the Mountain, and the Mountain crushes his skull. Hate to see that. In this scenario, we're gonna say, like, he does all the stuff, he wins, but he just, like, maybe keeps his spear in the Mountain and lets him slowly die, and then just stands a little off to the side and starts saying the stuff he does. Now, we do know kind of what Oberyn's plans were. Oberyn was going to take Tyrion with him to Dorne, and was going to really start plotting then. Now, I don't know how much this actually affects the story, because I do believe that Tywin was poisoned by Oberyn. I think that Tywin was going to die either way. I think Tyrion really sped up the process, and it made a lot more sense thematically and for plot reasons for Tyrion to be the one to kill Oberyn. But in this scenario, I think Tywin still ends up dying, whether it be a week from now or around the same time that Tyrion kills him anyway. So with that being said, Tywin still dies. Nothing really changes within King's Landing besides, I don't really know. I mean, I think King's Landing stays about the same. Cersei continues to play the game horribly, dividing the Tyrells and Lannisters up. I feel like Tyrion would go to Dorne expecting this to be Myrcella trying to crown her, but in reality, I think they would use Myrcella more as kind of a hostage against the Lannisters. Or maybe, like, they would be installing Myrcella to control, Casterly Rock with Tyrion once this war had been done. Because I think Doran would still stick to his main plan. He's been planning to do this for a very long time. I think Doran, with the help of Oberyn and Tyrion and Arianne, would look to restore the Targaryens, because I feel like it's their best option at this point. I think the Dornish by themselves will not be able to defeat the Lannisters and Tyrells. So I think what the Dornish look to do is, I think they do the same thing where Quentyn goes to Dany, all that happens again, doesn't work out the best, but instead we see them go for Fagon. So Fagon lands similarly to, but actually something I didn't think about is that the reason Fagon actually decided to land and go into Westeros was based off of Tyrion's advice. Now in this situation, Tyrion would never have met Fagon, so I think Fagon would have continued to go to see Dany. But that's where I feel like this really goes into left field, because we don't know what would happen there. Because already there's been one alliance attempted with Quentyn. Dany turns him down because she's marrying Hizdahr. Would she do the same with Fagon? How would that work? I mean, Fagon was looking to marry Daenerys because that was the Targaryen custom at this point. How would that work? Because he would be bringing the Golden Company probably with him, or would eventually pick them up. I just don't see Dany marrying him. I think Dany would try to keep him around, but I don't think they would realistically marry. So in this situation, let's say Fagon stays with her anyway. That's the only decision he thinks he can do. So eventually, with the power of even the Golden Company as well brought into to Marine, eventually Dany would be able to, conquer rest of Essos or whatever she wanted to do there pretty easily. I mean, I think it's pretty easy. The Golden Company is one of the most, or probably is the most formidable sellsword company within the entire Song of Ice and Fire. Or Ice and Fire. So I think more or less that Dany, her plot doesn't really change too much. I think eventually, now the only big thing is she wouldn't have the Council of Tyrion, which would suck. But I think inevitably, I just think she would continue to take over the rest of Essos and make it to Westeros. By this point, I don't know how the Dornish would be feeling, because their only two options would have been Aegon or Daenerys. And Daenerys is kind of the reason Quentyn dies, which they will eventually find out. So would they still go with him? I think Doran still would, and maybe would see that Quentyn was kind of stupid, and would, because he doesn't have any other option. His other option would be to crown Myrcella, which would be going directly against the Targaryen forces. That would be very powerful at this point. So I think realistically what does happen is Doran still, he gets the Dornish forces to go for Dany. Now think about how many good counselors Dany now is going to have. She's going to have Oberyn, Arianne, Tyrion, Doran himself. Dany would also control Myrcella, which she could use as kind of a big, thing against Cersei. Realistically, Dany is probably in a significantly better position in this scenario than she is in the books. I mean, she's just still in a wonderful position in the books, where I think she probably will have some of the Dothraki, if not all of it. Probably will have, her 3 dragons, will have the Unsullied, the Sellsword company she has at this point. I think she's in a very strong position in the books to, again, conquer Westeros. But I think even in this scenario, she's even more. And I think she even has higher support. If the Tyrells go to her side because of the Lannisters, that's huge as well, like what happened in the show. I don't know if that'll happen in the show, because the Tyrells, the only way I see the Tyrells going to Dany's side is if Marjorie dies, because then their ties with the crown are severed. Because right now, the King's Landing is more run by the Tyrells. It was with Kevin Lannister as well. But you look at Mace Tyrell being the Hand, you have Paxter Redwine in there. You've got a lot of Tyrell supporters that right now the crown is very much being supported by the Tyrells, that I don't know if they would flip sides like that. The North, I don't think, would care. If Stannis is still alive at this point, he definitely would not join forces with Daenerys or the crown. And the Vale, I think, will continue to just sit out unless Littlefinger sees a way of getting power. And the way I thought about it in my Littlefinger video was, I thought that maybe we could see Littlefinger trying to marry Sansa and getting the Vale's power, plus maybe the Riverlands, to Aegon by marrying Sansa to Aegon. I don't see that scenario happening in this one, because Fagon would either be marrying to Dany or would not be in a position of really power in this scenario. So I don't know what Littlefinger, I think Littlefinger would more or less not do that. As well as in this theory, I really don't think Littlefinger has anything to do with the plot we're going to be discussing. I think he would still be worried about all the stuff going on in the Vale, as well as using Sansa. The North, I don't think, would be impacted by this at all, I don't think. So I don't think anything would change there. Eventually, though, I do think, though, under this, that the kingdoms would be a lot more united, because there wouldn't be this Targaryen kind of civil war, I feel like, that there's going to be in the books again. Because I think Aegon in the books will take King's Landing and then be seen as like a hero, like somebody that freed them from Cersei and the Lannisters' tyranny, as well as the Tyrells. I mean, they like the Tyrells, but the Lannisters really not helping there. And will be looked upon as a really good character. And I think when Dany comes over with a bunch of characters, or a bunch of people that are foreigners, she's going to be looked at as kind of a foreign invader, kind of how Aegon was when he came across, when he did his conquest, as he was an outsider and stuff like that. That is kind of how I feel Daenerys is going to be received, and I think there will be some sort of conflict between Fagon and Daenerys. Now, that won't happen now. In the books, it'll be more, or not in the books, in this scenario, it'll be more Daenerys plus Fagon teaming up. They take King's Landing, they have the Dornish support. Any of the other houses probably will flock to their support. It just depends how the timing adds up. If they're all, together, they could really make a stand against the others if they were to make it across the wall, which they probably will with Euron and the Horn of Winter. I think that's something that I believe is going to happen. I've said in a lot of these videos, but that is something I think will happen. So with all of these forces being combined, and I think there being some sense of unity, I think Dany and the forces of the living have a good shot of actually winning this outcome. So I think Oberyn dying is something that doesn't change too much besides one key thing. The one key thing being, I think that Aegon does not invade Westeros by himself. And that's key because it's just another player right now in the books that are causing chaos and kind of just making us not unified within Westeros. And with Aegon taking his forces with the Golden Company, if they would have gotten them later on, or when he goes to see Daenerys in the first place, I think that would have been a really good thing, because instead of all this infighting we would have had, you would have had one unified force coming over from Essos and conquering Westeros and then turning them against the real enemy, the others. So in short, that is my what if for if, you know, Oberyn lived. Let me know what you guys think. And if you guys want to see a scenario in which you guys think would be a really cool what if, I really do love making these videos, especially these ones, because these ones are just really cool fan fictions where it's not really a lot of research, it's just a lot of like thinking about how the story would go differently, which is something I really like. Also, at last one of this video, I want to say thank you guys for all the support, and I want to say I hope you guys are enjoying the Maester Conspiracy Theory series. Those videos take a lot of research and effort, so I hope you guys enjoy those, because I've pretty much run through the entire fire, or at least 75% of the Fire and Blood book within like a week and a half. So that's been fun. I do really like Fire and Blood. The more I read it, the more I enjoy it and stuff. So if you guys haven't read Fire and Blood, give it a read. Been kind of rambling on for a little bit at the end of this video, but I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.